All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Wombo Combo, episode number 2, coming at you, a Dota 2 competitive podcast. As always, excited to be here. And I'm only one of your two hosts. I'm BreakyCPK, and of course, joining me is BSJ, coming fresh off an early stream. We'll continue after, of course, but welcome to the podcast, man. Give me 1 second here. This is my fault with technical issues. You are currently coming out of somewhere else. We'll figure this out together. 1 second.
I believe in us.
There we go. Now we should be good as far as that's concerned. All right. Good start. Good start.
First try.
We were both a little busy on the weekend at TwitchCon, of course, so just coming back now, but obviously excited to be here and ready for a podcast. So yeah, how was your TwitchCon, by the way, first things first?
It was pretty good. I think the most enjoyable part of TwitchCon for me was actually the people watching. Like, there's just a lot of interesting characters to be seen. People not only like dressed up as characters, but also just people in general. A lot of interesting folks. I mean, I guess that's the internet coming to life. It's kind of funny, like, I went to E3, and it was a little weird for me just because there were a lot of console games and stuff that I never play. And so I kind of felt disconnected a bit from the scene just because I don't have anything in common with console players who play games I've never heard of or that I've never played. But it was funny because at TwitchCon, you can kind of feel this, I have something in common with everybody here, which is just Twitch. And I thought that, like, even though you don't play the same games at all, we all speak the same language, which oftentimes the language of Twitch, you know, the emotes, the memes, you can't really use in real life. So that was kind of funny.
Some people do. There are those that do. Will run around, so
that's fair.
Yeah, there was a guy literally dressed up as Bob Ross, and he had like this whole like paintboard with him. People were signing and everything. It's kind of fun. No, it's definitely more of a social convention. I do agree there. I thought that's like ultimately the purpose of it. And yeah, seeing a lot of these streamers that you see on stream all the time as you're just walking through the convention, like, oh, hey, there's Asmongold, one of the biggest streamers, just walking on by and just doing his thing. So it certainly was an experience. It was my first personally, so had a lot of fun. San Diego, a great place for one. It's one of those maybe recommend going to checking out once if you're a fan of conventions at all, I suppose. But I didn't get a picture with Pokey. I know that you did. So, congratulations on that, by the way.
You jealous or what? No, I'm kidding.
a little bit jealous. No, that was definitely a fun event though. But we got Dota to talk about. That's of course the point of this podcast. So I know we do have some fresh viewers tuning in. So to real quickly catch you up, what the deal with the Wombo Combo is? It's essentially a Dota 2 competitive focused podcast. Myself and BSJ are hosts. Occasionally we'll plan to have on guests as well when it works out. Speaking of that, today we're hoping to have a guest on. It seems like it might have fallen through, unfortunately, but, maybe he'll show up. Don't want to. Okay, well, it was going to be CCnC, of course, talking about his new squad and everything, but something came up, so maybe he'll be here, maybe not. Either way, we will definitely have guests on in future shows as well, but it'll last about 30 to 45 minutes as far as the overall show itself, so that's what you can expect. It is also uploaded to iTunes as well as Spotify, something to check out for after the fact, of course, or, hey, you may be listening to that right now if you're watching or listening, I should say, to the recorded side of things. So, but BSJ, last week, our first episode, we talked plenty about rosters. Rosters officially closing a couple of days ago, but there was still a couple more changes that took place, or a couple more updates even. One of them being, we'll just start with this one, actually, as I already kind of brought it up. The official word on this, what they're calling themselves Team Quincy, it is officially Sumail, CCnC, Yawar, MSS, and SVG. So, again, we've already kind of given our thoughts on this as of last week's show. There's a heavy rumor at it, but it is now official. So, to be clear, Sumail is playing 1, Yawar in the 3. That's where it's the most interesting to me, as I'm sure is for most, and whether or not this team is really going to work out the best. But how confident are you personally that this is going to be a pretty good squad in NA?
All of these players have kind of proven themselves to take that step from like tier 3 qualifier Dota to actually making it to TI, doing pretty well in majors, finishing middle of the pack. And I was going to ask CCnC, but just in case he doesn't come, I want to mention this, that they've always said that NA has like a lack of mid laners, and that's a serious problem to find a mid laner to round out your squad. And what better idea than to just monopolize all of the mid laners. Yawar, even though he's been a carry for a while, also plays a ton of mid lane. So you just put CCnC, Sumail, and Yawar all on the same team, and there's like Gunnar who left and Bryle, and that's it. And then EG obviously got Abed. We call EG an NA team, but they're not even really NA at the end of the day with their roster. So I'm rooting for this team. I believe they have really good chances, and they are the true NA team for me. Like, they are 5 American pub players that I play with all the time. I know all of them through a lot of playing with them, so I'm definitely rooting for these guys.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really interesting way to look at it. It certainly is, Sumail and CCnC specifically, but you're right. You are a great core player himself, so in a sense monopolizing. But no, we definitely have very high expectations with this team. Yes, EG is still, I think, in a lot of people's minds, the number 1 in NA, but I could see this team certainly giving them very quick competition, and obviously that's something we're going to find out going into this weekend, and as the DPC kicks off, which we're definitely going to preview, I should say, a little bit later on in the show, so don't want to necessarily go too much into that yet. But so that's one of the, obviously, with the official announcement there, pretty big news. A couple other rosters I thought was worth also mentioning that did happen, roster changes even that did happen after our last show and into today. A pretty big one, Resolution actually no longer part of JStorm. He indeed was picked up by VP. Of course, VP going through plenty of roster changes themselves, including now we know Roger is officially out of the team. So you're looking at No One and Solo still remaining with the squad, and now Resolution a part of that as well. Resolution going to be playing offlane, however, for the team. That's also, what is up with these really core players, position 1 even going to offlane? That is something that we're seeing a trend, of course. Hell, we saw Sumail even last season try it out. And as on the JStorm side of things, Brax is now replacing in the offlane on JStorm, and Moo's going to go to position 1 as a result, too. So he's kind of going back. He's been bouncing back and forth between those roles in these last couple of seasons right here. But the big news is definitely Resolution, of course, known as one of the best core players in the world. He's now in VP. He's in his home region even of CIS. How do you think this is going to play out now?
I just want to say that I think in the core role, going from 1 to 3 is probably the easiest transition. You always lane against the 3. So when it comes against for like the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game, you kind of know exactly what you're supposed to do because you've been dealing with what people are supposed to be doing. You're fighting against it. You kind of know this is what to expect. This is what's really annoying to play against as a carry player. So I don't find it too surprising when 1 position players find themselves going to 3. I do find it weird when I find mid players going to 3 with S4 and Sumail. I think that's less likely to work. It doesn't mean it can't. But I'm very curious. I've seen Resolution. We've all known him as a carry player for years. So same thing with Ramses, even though Ramses, I guess, did used to play offlane when he would move to EG now.
Yeah.
I think teams are kind of thinking it's less important what role I'm playing and more important who I'm playing with and whether or not that's a good fit. So I think that people are just shifting their priorities and what matters to them and what they think needs to happen for them to win Dota. And this is their job. This is their profession. They don't care what it takes to win. They just want to have the right recipe of a team to make it happen. So I think Resolution, going back to, his roots, I think is absolutely fine. I think he's had a long enough stint in NA. So I'm looking forward to seeing what VP can do. I think they have the experience and leadership already. So now it's just a matter of filling the gaps. And obviously No One of the best mid laners in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And there has been history of this whole, core player, whether it's 1 or 2 going to position 3, and it worked out. One that really comes to mind is S4. More recently playing with EG, of course, back in his days, was a mid player. So certainly can work out. But, man, it almost feels, in the same case as Ramses to me, it almost feels like a waste. Like, I understand offlane certainly has their presence in the game and what they're supposed to do, but I look at a player like Resolution, I look at a player like Ramses, maybe this is a hindsight thing to say, but in comparison to somebody like an S4, it doesn't scream to me. S4 seems like more of a player that, I'm here for the team, I'm here to do what needs to be done, be the initiator, sacrifice myself at times, whatever. Ramses and Resolution don't seem like those type of players. They've always seemed like these kind of players that you play around, and they're going to be the playmakers, and they're the ones that carry you in the game. It was the same reason I hated the Sumail change last season, or that was last season, right? Yeah, when he went to offlane initially, or the season before. Whatever it was, at the time, it was didn't make any sense. And we quickly saw the change back as a result from there. So for me, I don't know if I'm sold that this is 100% going to work out in the best decisions. Ramses does have the history, as you pointed out, but how much was that? How much did that really matter, right? Like VP, him being the carry for VP is where he really blew up as a player. So that's my thought. Do you have any sense? Do you feel like that could be an issue, or are you not concerned about that at all?
My closing thought on that is that these players have been playmakers, like you said, the carries of the team. And going from patch to patch, it really changes what the meta is, obviously. In this meta that's been going on for a while, this may change when they patch the game massively sometime later this year. The carry role sucks, man. Like, it actually just sucks. You can't do anything. Like, your control of the game prior to 20 minutes, your impact on like whether or not your team's going to win the game is like 5 to 10% of the game up until 20 minutes. And I think these players who are high impact players are just tired of it. Like, that's why they're all moving from 1 to 3. And on the other hand, Sumail, I've been seeing him almost just outplay people as a safe laner. So he is still somehow making it work. I've been watching him party queue. I've played against it myself. He's an incredibly aggressive safe laner. And so I think that these players are almost saying it's not about what position I'm playing. It's kind of what my play style is and what part of the role I like to take on my team. And the role that Ramses and Resolution have taken kind of fits the 3 role right now. So it makes sense to me. But like I said, it's not just that easy to swap roles. It is a concern. It always is a concern. But I believe that if you think it fits your play style, if you're comfortable saying, I want to be the playmaker, like for me, it's really hard to just play passively on the map and just be farming. And so I'll naturally have some random deaths because I'm trying to make something happen when my hero just can't. And that's quite possible why somebody like Resolution didn't feel like he had the success he wanted to have last season. And there's just so much that goes behind the scenes, and I have less skepticism about them swapping positions than you, but it is obviously a genuine concern.
Yeah, it's a concern that's there, and we'll see. We'll see again. It's starting quickly here as the DPC does kick. I also kind of wonder now too, just a secondary thought before we move on, if these drafts, are we going to see teams maybe drafting more carry-centric offlane, or something like, the Faceless Void offlane could come to mind. He's considered a pretty strong hero right now, specifically in that one position, but you throw him in the hands of Ramses in the offlane, you get something else in that position. Just an example, do you think that's something else that we could potentially see, or our team's going to stick to more?
I think it's quite possible if they want to run it as a flex early pick, if people end up just prioritizing Faceless Void as a first round. I don't think they'll ever late pick him and say, yeah, let's make him an offlane.
Yeah.
I will say that the main thing about the offlane right now as a carry player is because of items like Ring of Basilius, which I don't really know the impact of this Ring of Protection change yet because I just got back from the side shop. But your tower as a safe laner is just under siege for the first 10 minutes of the game. And it's your job as a safe laner to just weather that storm. And so I think every offlane hero this meta will have to be able to hit your tower and pressure it. And if that's not capable, then they're not going to be played in the offlane. So it makes me a little hesitant to say Void will be, because he's not really known as a pressure hero. He's more of a, trade with you, kill you kind of hero. Mm-hmm. But with like the right lineup, I think that heroes that are broken we saw it with Kunkka, can kind of just be played in any role. So I completely believe that we may see them playing comfort zone heroes that are usually safe laners in a traditionally different role.
Yeah. All right, moving things along right here. Sticking a little bit with the roster right, to kind of wrap it all up before we advance on to DPC. I figured a couple of questions that made sense to ask. I mean, with the whole roster shuffle taking place, we covered it all last show, and now even the beginning of this show. Of all these changes, which are you most excited for the most, looking at all these roster moves that happened here?
I think you could hear it in my tone of voice. It's just the Sumail CCnC UR team. I just think that SVG is a great captain. I think MSS is one of the best 4 players, if not the best 4 player in NA. And I just love rooting for actual NA teams. Like, the main thing for me is that I get to play with these guys and you actually know them. A lot of people ask me, what do you think of this Chinese team? And I say, I enjoy watching their games, but I don't have any way to relate to them. I don't know what they sound like in interviews. I don't know what they play like in pubs. I don't know their personalities. And this is a team where I know all these guys, and we're kind of finally getting to see a break in this EG Sumail era. Sure. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, on that note, VP is the same situation in CIS, just like we're seeing kind of the break of EG. VP is also now broken up somewhat, so it opens up CIS that much more. You could argue, NA maybe a little bit less right now, but it's still opened up a little bit, of course, when it comes to competition from what we've seen these last couple of years in that one spot specifically. So for me to answer the own question there is NIP. I personally am excited most about NIP, what they're going to bring to the table, yet another new squad that PPD is bringing together. Of course, Gunnar, we've talked about in the previous show, the excitement behind him and what he's going to be able to bring to the table as a position 2 representing NA Universe coming back after a full season break. The experience that he brings. Yeah, I love this team, and I'm excited to see what they can do starting this weekend, of course.
I absolutely. PPD all throughout the season, I've talked to him at like several majors in TI. He said he needed a real mid laner, and no offense to Fada. And I think PPD has gotten that, and I look forward to seeing his experience combined with Gundaddy's craziness that I have talked about.
I'm sitting here, though, wondering, are they better off playing in Europe over NA? I know NIP's from Europe, of course, and that's where they're staying at the time being, but both are going to be tough regions. Europe does get an extra spot. We'll go into that more later, but Europe's also really tough, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely is a tough call, but I'm sure their salaries are pretty high, so if NIP wants to stay there, they're probably just going to stick around.
I'm sure they'll make it work. They'll make it work in the end. Yeah, so definitely NIP for me, but understandable Quincy, of course. The Quincy stack, certainly going to be fun to look for right there. So I guess kind of another question that I asked, too, is the most surprising move of all the roster changes. We certainly have had some very interesting ones. Any of that have stood out to you personally the most?
I honestly came into this thinking it was going to be the resolution change, but I really think it's overall the Yawar change. I'm highlighting this team again that out of all these players that have swapped positions, I think all the players that are swapping positions is very alarming to me, as we've talked about. But Yawar has just never proven himself to be an offlaner. So I'm very curious. I talked about how they're 3 mid lane player-esque type style guys, like personality-wise too. How that's going to fit in. And I just love to see how a player can change their mindset for a specific team. So that's like the most alarming one for me, for sure.
Something that we didn't actually talk about, I actually forgot to put in the outline altogether. I remember now that it happened after last week's show, but this now would have to be for me, Alliance, the Alliance squad leaving the team. Now, so how this played out, at first I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, they dropped that roster? They were just becoming really good, but apparently the players were the ones that mutually agreed to leave the roster. That is Alliance. So they're the ones that decided to leave. Alliance wanted to keep them, but couldn't work anything out. So in the end, Alliance squad with the same roster right there is moving on to we don't know what. And as I pointed out in a tweet, there are not many great organizations out there that are as prestigious as an Alliance, especially in the Dota 2 scene. So I was shocked to hear that. They're a heavy Swedish team as well. A lot of people are speculating about Team Liquid. They have not picked up a team yet. So if it's Team Liquid that picks them up, I suppose I see that a good reason in the end. But if it's not, then I'm very intrigued to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, you never know what's going on behind the scenes, right? What the salary deal is, what their deal is going into the next season, what perks came with the deal, the team house situation, how the org was run behind the scenes. You know, maybe they just thought we don't need this org, or it's worth it to us to potentially get another org that's better. Like you said, there's not very many orgs, but as you also mentioned, there's orgs that are opening up. So if there's a time that you're going to quote unquote ditch your org, it's now. So there's just so many things that go on behind the scenes with orgs that I can't even fathom their reason. But at the same time, I can also understand that as players, even if something seems okay, that this team has shown a lot of promise, and I believe that they may have just found something they believe is a better opportunity.
Yeah, and
or they think they could.
We're still waiting to see. We don't know yet. So it's been like 3 or 4 days now at least. I want to say even a little bit longer since that news came out. So the fact that we haven't heard an announcement yet does worry me a little bit for their sake. But again, we'll find out eventually here, I'm sure. I doubt they just simply dropped Alliance just because they didn't want to play with Alliance anymore and didn't really have a contingent plan there. So it's being brought up in chat. Mother Luna asking in chat right here. By the way, on this note, feel free to ask questions in chat, and we may or may not reference it, but I do feel like this is kind of a nice transition. Mother Luna asked about the ex-Han player Moon Meander playing with Eternal Envy and that stack. We did talk a little bit about that in the previous show, but one more question that I was planning to ask you, the least expectations of a big roster. And I know you especially were pretty sold on the idea that not maybe having high expectations of this team moving into this upcoming season.
Yeah, to answer your question, I'll also segue us to our next section, which is talking about how there's 3 spots in the major for EU, China, and CIS, while there's only 2 spots for NASA and SCA. So with this team, not only do I have question marks about whether or not they are going to stick together, but we talked about how there's contingents for the top spot in NA. And that's between 2 teams that I think are drastically better than everyone else, at least at the current moment. So the fact that there's only 2 spots for majors for North America, it just bodes doom almost to me, to any team like this that's like, yeah, they're clearly above any other stack in NA, but is it enough to go to minors most of the time? You're going to maybe half or more of the minors. Are you ever going to go to a major? And that's the problem with this for me, is like, you talk about a team like NIP coming to NA instead of EU, but those 2 spots are under hard contention in NA. So even though NA seems like an easier region, it's not exactly, just handing it on a silver platter to go to a major when there's 2 very good teams that are clearly.
Oh, 1 second here. I apologize. I was trying to make this work. Awkward. Okay, are you there, BSJ?
Yeah, I'm here. I figured it out.
I was trying to do some on-the-fly edit him to the call, and then sure enough, it closed the call.
Our boy CCnC's joined us.
Well, that's why. It's for good reason, I promise. So, CCnC, are you there, by the way?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Quincy?
It's going good.
Do you have your webcam, by the way?
Yeah, I do. Hang on a second.
All right, cool. Launch that baby up if you don't mind.
This is the smoothest transition in history.
In history. That's what we do here on this podcast. All about smooth transitions. No, but you know what? It's about bringing on an awesome player that is CCnC, and so I figured it's worth it here. But yeah, so to your point there, BSJ, it is going to be tough competition in NA, and well, speaking of that, of course, we have somebody joining us now that is going to be playing in that region. That we were just.
He's going to get it down eventually.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know I haven't used this thing in so long. All right.
There we go. The tweaks have been made, and I think we are good to go. CCnC, welcome to the podcast, the Wombo Combo. We were just got finished talking about your squad. It sounded like, in fact, the reason why you're joining us a little bit late, it's for good reason. You were finishing up some scrimmages there.
Yeah, we had some scrims, so can't really move them or whatever. So yeah.
Well, how did they go? I got to ask.
I mean, that's a trade secret, man. That's a trade secret. You have to wait and see the fruits of our labor in a week or so.
Speaking of,
we don't have to wait too long.
Yeah, well, it starts this Saturday, so yeah, it's coming up, man. I mean, as far as the group stages are coming up here, but how you have, if you want to divulge this information or not, but how long have you guys been playing together? Because again, there were some rumors that came out, some leaked screenshots and everything. How long has this been going on together?
Like, how long have we been scrimming actually? And we've been scrimming for like this is will be our 3rd week of scrimming, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't really how long we were together before we started scrimming, I'm not sure, but it's been a decent while. Like it's been decided or whatever that we were going to play with each other for a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, the I don't know, the dude that's not LGD Ame fan, the other guy, that guy had it like so early. I actually don't know who that guy is, but he has some crazy sources of information. It was like the day we decided, he posted on Reddit. I was like, what? Who is this guy?
That's crazy. That's how right he can be sometimes with some of these rosters. So talking about your lineup right here, of course, you were coming off a season playing with Yawar and MSS, playing with the newbie organization at TI itself. Is this kind of a roster creation that came about as a result of TI? It seems like a lot of these do. Maybe the after parties or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't say it's like so much a result of TI as it is like you finish TI. I mean, it's like not a result of like after parties or anything. It's sort of just like TI is the culmination of the year, right? Whenever it's over, like people want to like try playing with different players, or other people want to move on. Like, these types of things, they just sort of indicate like who's going to be on the team, and then you sort of, like when you've decided, people are decided they're going to move on, you decide you want to play with new people, like you just sort of figure out the people you'd like to play with the most, and you figure out a way to put them together.
Was it tough to convince Yoar to play offlane for this team, or was he all for it?
He was the one that suggested it.
Oh. Okay.
So that segues into my question
Sure.
pretty well here. We've talked a lot about people transitioning roles. And so obviously you have two players who formerly played mid-ish carry, and one of them moved from mid to carry, and the other one moved from carry to offlane. People have kind of asked, is the primary reason that you're just trying to make sure you play with the people you want to play with? Not so much about what role you want to play. Is that like about putting the pieces together? Like, did Sumail play carry because he didn't feel like there were enough good carries in NA? Or do you have like a reason behind why there's these swaps of roles?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think for the most part, it's just people want to play with certain people, and because they want to play with those people, you just sort of make the freaking tweaks necessary because you want to play with X or Y people. I think the other thing, I mean, in Sumail's case, I think Sumail has just like kind of wanted to play carry for a bit. But I think for the most part, most like role switches and stuff, like you look at Rezo, like they're really good friends with him, right? Like he's switching to offlane or whatever. Like they just want to play with him, I think, because they think he's a good player and they like him. They're friends with him and stuff, right? And so they're just going to slot him in where they can because they think he's a good player and smart guy and stuff, and they just want him on their team, like regardless of the role. Like they trust that he can switch, and I think that's like Ramses or whatever, right? Like I think that's how it is for most of these switches. Is they just trust the people, they want to play with them, like you said, and they slot them in where they can.
Is this the OG effect? Like people are getting better at competitive Dota, or they know, or they think it's more of a better solution to find the better fit of players rather than everyone playing their perfect role?
I mean, I feel it's like kind of been role switching in the past as well. Like, I mean, the thing is like, it's different now, or like I think the reason why so many like big tier players are switching roles like in this specific shuffle is because a lot of like the big teams changed. Like VP changed players, EG changed players, like there's a lot of teams that like change players, right? Like really big teams. And whenever you have like really big teams, then like there's these huge names, right? And whenever you have like huge names, you just like want the per player. Whereas like if you already have like a majority of a squad, like one big team changes one player, then you don't have like this gigantic name that you want to slot this name in somewhere. Like you just want a player. And I feel like that's the reason why this happened more now than like in the past, is like there generally aren't like too many humongous team shuffles like the the big teams, right? Generally they stick together. EG stuck together last year, VP, etc. So like there's more like slotting in than there is like there's more like we want this role than there is like we want this player.
Okay, that's cool, man.
On that topic, if a team was to come to you, whatever, like if Puppy was to come to you and be like, I want you to play for my squad as an offlane player or even a support player, could you see yourself doing that, or are you pretty content on playing mid and a core role?
I mean, support. I mean, the thing is, I can't ever see myself getting asked to play support on Secret. That sounds insanely unlikely.
Just scenario.
Offlane is also very unlikely, but if I think if I were asked to play offlane, I'd strongly consider, probably say yes.
Yeah.
Support. Support. I don't know. I don't really like playing support that much.
That's later on. You're still a young player. You still got those reflexes and stuff. So, later on in your career, maybe.
Yeah, well, he can wait like 6 or 7 years before he has to do that. My last question I wanted to ask, it was kind of a joke I made early on in the podcast, was there's only 2 slots in NA for the major, and we always assume EG.
According to Liquipedia, that's how it's playing out. So that's what I'm going with.
That's what I was assuming as well. So I guess it's not officially announced, but that's the assumption going in. I guess to safely assume, you can assume there's going to be 2 slots going into the major. And my question is that you have EG, and did it ever occur to you guys that you're monopolizing the mid lane here on your team?
I mean, it's a bit amusing. We have like a lot of mid players.
Well, it's always been a struggle to get mid laners in NA, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
So did that ever cross your mind that you guys are obviously you have 3 mid players, but did you ever cross your mind that how the hell is anyone going to compete with us as a third team if we just take all the mid laners?
No, not really so much. There's Brawl. Like Brawl's good.
Yeah, I'm not trying to But you're just taking him out of the pool, right? So all I'm saying is like it becomes that much harder to actually compete with you. I was just wondering if that ever occurred to you guys that you were doing that.
No, I mean it's a pretty good meme, but I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that had absolutely nothing to do with your formation.
No,
of the
no.
You're really sold on this, BSJ.
I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying it would be believable.
Hey,
if, like,
it's
it would be
kinda
so
worked
funny if
out,
he's
yeah.
like, yeah, we thought it'd be like we all wanted to play together, and we thought it'd be perfect that we just take all the mid laners.
Yeah, you know, you got.
No, that was not part of the plan.
Damn, a man can dream that.
That'd be pretty amusing.
Get Abed to play support for you, and then there's not a you can get Brawl to play support, I guess. There you go.
Yeah, you can get them all. Five mid players.
Fine.
Exactly.
Perfect name in the making there. So kind of going back to that, I'm actually curious on your answer, whether or not it's the case again. So I guess it's not 100% official, but the information that is in front of us is suggesting that NA only has 2 slots. CIS was given the 3 slots. Do you feel like that is deserving? It sounds like not. Okay, well, according to what I'm looking at, CIS is given three slots.
All right, until Valve announces this, I'm not believing it. That sounds crazy.
Okay. So you would be surprised. Well, who deserves the 3 slots then? Are you going to say NA?
China and nobody
China,
else.
Europe. Well, okay. It has to be 3 regions for the match to work.
I mean, it doesn't though, right? Like last year, the last major, they gave 2, like the top 2 in the minor. I think. I mean, like Europe depends on what teams are playing in the qualifier. Like if Liquid's not playing the qualifier, if OG's not playing the qualifier, if I don't know which teams are playing the qualifier or not. But like if none of those big 3 are playing the qualifier, I don't think EU deserves 3 slots.
That's fair. That's a good point. I never considered that.
All right. Well, yeah. I guess again we'll see. That I suppose we should have waited for an official announcement on this, but people are saying with the Wikipedia side of things, maybe not 100% official, but
like on that, aren't that?
Oh, lagging out there a little bit.
I think we're losing.
Wait, hello.
You're there.
Hello?
Yeah,
Okay,
you're back. You're back.
Maybe a little bit in and out.
All
right.
Am I good? 1, 2, 3.
I think you're good now. I think we're good to go. So how ready are you for this weekend, by the way? Again, the qualifiers start this weekend. How ready is your team? Are you guys ready to do work?
Yeah, I mean, ready as I'll ever be. It'll be nice to play again. Qualifiers are always entertaining. They're always quite the mess, especially new rosters, etc. Even whenever, it'll just be interesting to see because it takes a while for people to like mesh and things to, pan out as you want them to. So it'll be interesting to see. There's some EG, there's some freaking flying Papegas. It'll be fun.
I think the average player in Dota would look at a patch like 7.22H and just say that is so small, it doesn't do anything. No. I guess my question is, I don't need you to reveal strats or anything, but how big of an impact does a little patch like this have going into qualifiers? I think nerfing like very strong items can drastically shift things sometimes.
I mean, maybe it like tweaks things one way or another a little bit initially, and then like later down the road it has larger impacts. But I think it's hard to. I don't think it's particularly healthy to take like too much away from small changes and like think they have like humongous impacts initially. Like you can say like, I mean, buying Bassi at the start is not as viable or whatever, like stuff like this. But it takes like a little bit of time for people to like identify if these like small changes have like bigger implications.
Okay.
We're gonna find out again pretty quickly here into the weekend. So, and I know this is kind of a cliche question, but I guess I'll word it this way. If you guys do not qualify for this first major and majors throughout, are you going to be disappointed, or do you think there's going to be some growing pains?
I mean, I think both are possible. Like, I think you can... Like, I think there will be growing pains regardless of whether we qualify for the major or not. We're a new team. Some of us have never played with each other before. Like it takes time to build chemistry and mesh your ideas about the game, like all these things. Like just because, like we could qualify to the major and have growing pains, or we could, I don't know why it's so hard for me to phrase this. I think there'll be growing pains regardless of whether we qualify or not.
I get it, yeah. Certainly will be. So, all right. Well, it sounds like you guys have been preparing though, and obviously best of luck into this weekend. So I want to thank you for joining. BSJ, anything else before we let them go?
Oh, I'm just rooting for you guys, man. The true NA squad.
We are 5 Americans.
Yes, I said that. I'm like, I am genuinely excited to watch 5 Americans that I believe could actually have.
We're a real NA team. You hear that, freaking haters?
Yeah. Good luck, man.
I've been fired. Yeah, good luck, man. Best of luck, and we'll be watching you guys this weekend, of course. So good luck again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So again, that was Quincy joining us there. Okay, make sure we're good. Okay, we're back to myself and BSJ now on the show. So there you go. CCnC joining us, like we mentioned. I didn't get a word from leading up to the podcast, so I wasn't really sure if he's going to be joining us or not, but was finishing up some scrimmages. It happens, ran a little long, but at least we got him on to talk there and learning some fun stuff about the team, man. It's that whole meme. You really wanted that to play out with the whole mid, but unfortunately they only got 3 out of 5 mid players.
I generally don't go for the conspiracy theories, but that one seemed believable enough that if I had predicted it and it was right, man, I would just feel so smart. So,
yeah.
But also, it's interesting when you hear from someone like him where he says, "Is that known yet? I'll wait for Valve to announce." That's just kind of the state of Dota. And that's
True.
Also like, do we know if he's coming to our interview today? That's the life of competitive Dota. You don't know your schedule tomorrow. You don't know how many spots you're going to have going into the major 5 days from now. Like, I just think it's so funny to try to explain that to somebody. Even trying to schedule something as when you're on a team, like he said he was going to come to his interview, and it's not something I would expect him to just flake for no reason.
Yeah.
And he just said, yeah, we had a scrim that went long. And you're just thinking, gosh, imagine operating on that schedule. It's incredibly stressful. It takes a toll on you over the course of time. And that's why you hear all these players asking for breaks and wanting to take the major off. You'd be amazed how every day, like day to day, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, having little things thrown at you constantly can just build up. And I just think that's a perfect example to see there that, we kind of just went in assuming this is the information we got. This is what we're playing off of. But that's what they're playing off of. He goes, is that confirmed? I don't know. Like, do you know? Could they do 2 teams from the minor? Could they do 3?
I'm sitting here actually trying to find that confirmation, and I can't find it. So to his credit, I guess it hasn't officially been announced, but I figured since we are so close to it starting that would have.
That's what I'm saying, right?
So, but you're right.
Nobody's really going to question it, but from the team player's perspective, he knows instantly.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because we're so used to this at this point.
Well, that's what we talked a little bit about the last show too, where the schedule did change this season, where it's a little more condensed now with the qualifiers being one in itself as far as the minor and the majors go. So that'll help a little bit when it comes to schedule. But you need to make sure you have a good team manager. That's one way to put it. That's sure. And that's why these top tier teams, with these bigger organizations, you expect that they have some sort of manager, of course. They're very important, just as important as the coach or whatever else. They certainly are, keeping them in track as far as their obligations. Of course, the matches themselves, but there's plenty else around it, from scrimmages to interviews to whatever is necessary. So busy lifestyle indeed for these guys. But Team Quincy, I certainly don't expect that team to be called Team Quincy for a very long time this season. I'm sure, speaking of organizations, they're going to get picked up. There's been some rumors. We've mentioned the possibility of Cloud9 coming back. Team Liquid is still looking for a team. Complexity is still looking for a team. Who knows?
If that squad can't find a team, I've given up any hope of any NA team ever finding a team.
If they can't find, if they can't find a team, they're asking for too much money. I think is another way to put it.
That's another side of things, right? Maybe they think they're above, any $5,000 salary type team, which I believe is true. They're way step above any NA stack that we've seen in the recent years. But at the same time, I just have to believe that a team like this can come to an agreement with some org that's big enough to pay them what they think they deserve.
Maybe some results are being weighted on as well. And again, if they qualify for the major, even as the number 1 seed, then an org will be like, okay, these guys are for real. Let's work something out here. So all speculation. Don't really know for sure. Want to keep things moving, though. Of course, it's great to have him on, but it means we're probably going to have to cut some of these things and move a little bit quicker here. But so we really won't speculate too much then on the whole only being 2 NA and 3 CS, because I guess if it's not 100% confirmed, then let's not worry about that too much. And maybe address it next week's show when we do have the information right there. I figured it makes sense, though, to kind of go again, a little quicker, but through each of the regions here that are coming up with the qualifiers starting this weekend. Going through all 6 regions, kind of just, a quick preview, basically, of the teams in each region and maybe who to expect coming out on top. Now, this is still a little bit tricky because we actually don't even know all the teams. There's some of these players that are still out there, some of these teams that even 100% haven't been announced just yet, and we know that some of these squads are actually going to have to play in open qualifiers because if they weren't registered 2 days ago, then that's where you have to play in the end. So we'll start with the European region, and I figure, one of the more exciting ones, of course, and a lot of people consider a difficult one. You have a plethora of teams. We got now X Alliance that we're looking at. We have, of course, OG, but is it even going to be the full OG squad? I don't think so. Going into the first one, you have NIP, as I talked about. You have Team Secret, of course, the big dog there. In Europe, what stands out to you as far as the European region?
I mean, what stands out to me is pretty much what CCnC said. We have no idea what to expect on how many of the big 3, quote unquote, are going to be playing. Obviously Liquid, the team isn't Liquid anymore, but who are they going to show up with as their final 5? And you have Team Secret, who, hasn't even given official confirmation, as far as I know, exactly what their roster is. And then you have OG, who's talked about a couple players taking breaks. Like, this region's quality of play could be way high, or it could kind of just be mediocre. So I think that's the most alarming thing to me that stands out for this region.
Yeah, it definitely depends on who's playing for which teams in the end. So
it looks like Secret's not even playing in the first majors, what somebody in chat said, which I would.
Yeah, on that, I noticed that they had not signed up yet, according to the website there. So I believe that's what that means. Either, I guess that means they would have to play in the open qualifiers or just not play at all.
Or they're just not playing.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, when you play TI, it's like, why would you, if you're going to take a break, it's going to be now. And with TI being so much money, why not? I guess they've announced it officially. So I definitely would believe that that's the case. And that's the thing, right? Is the first major, it's so hard to tell anything because all these big teams, this is becoming a normal thing where they just decide beginning of the season is the best time to take a break. It's just one major. We have no qualms with qualifying. Like, I feel like the only teams that should make sure they play the first major are the teams that know they're going to be on the fence at the end of the season on DPC points. They're going to be on the fence of whether or not they make the cut to make it to TI. And if you're not one of those teams, then who cares? You're not going to remember the $25,000 you could have each won now when you win your $200K each at TI. You're just like, you're not going to remember it. And that's the thing, is the money at that point isn't what matters to them for this first major. And that's pretty funny to think, but it's all perspective and it's all balance in life. And Dota is incredibly stressful. And that's the thing about this first major, I think, is hilarious with Europe specifically, is since they had so many teams placing so high at TI, they're also kind of the same region that has people taking the most breaks. So.
Somebody tried to actually post the roster shuffling in chat. Got deleted quickly by the Nightbot, but I do
take him out, Nightbot.
Yeah, I do see what you were referencing right there, and I was looking for that earlier, so I'm actually glad you pointed that out there. But there was confirmation. Yeah, Secret actually pointing out they're gonna they will not be announcing any changes for 2 months. So that's actually an interesting way to word it, because again, they haven't even officially announced their plans as far as their roster goes. So we know they're definitely not playing the first cycle. Will they even be the same squad? We don't know.
Damn.
That's how it stands. And that would be something. That's one of those teams where, man, I would find it hard to believe them breaking up, but we don't know the behind the scenes. Is there behind the scenes stuff going on? Puppy does have a history of he's a great leader, but definitely can be a in-your-face leader, I guess is one way to put it. So maybe there are some issues there. Who knows, right? So that's going to be an interesting one to see.
Absolutely.
That plays out there. Team Secret, don't know there, but again, when it comes to Europe, really a region as funny as it sounds, and kind of an unknown, especially with all the question marks still there. You have China jumping over to that region. Of course, one of the few teams that felt like that announced they're sticking together. You are looking at LGD and their squad there, so they certainly have to be one of the big dogs, one of the favorites going into it. But China's another region where a lot of changes taking place. So we'll see. I personally think Vici Gaming, another team that you always have to look out for. But Ori still on the squad right there. But yeah, so we'll see how China plays out. But any thoughts on China?
Yeah, I paid attention to the fact that they had their ESL One Hamburg, the other tournament going on. That's not the minor major DPC event. And IG took the took the close qualifiers. They were an open qualifier team, and they ended up taking out, I believe it was CDEC, RNG, and Aster.
Yeah.
So I think that the China region is always scary. So there's a lot of teams on this list, and they're always contention for top 8 at majors. Like last season, it was kind of Keen Gaming, who kind of, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but there's also these kind of flops like Newbie was last season. I like to watch this region in the sense of where, like what organization kind of comes out on top, because there's so much competition there that it breeds a lot of variety, and I like to see that.
Team Aster actually picking up SCCCC. SCCCC. SCCC is what I like to call it.
Yeah, I call him Triple C, so otherwise I confuse him with CCnC every time.
Yeah. So, of course, Newbie itself, the main Newbie organization, had kind of a flat run last season with him on it, and is going back to the season before. Of course, the runner-up there against Liquid, so it's good to see him with a new squad, and that's just yet another team to look out for. But, yeah, you're right with IG. Definitely one that's on a hot streak right now with their ESL 1 qualifying success. The Russian 07, by the way, in chat is pointing out, the guy apparently who predicted the CCnC stack right away is also suggesting that mid 1 is out and Matoma Man will come in, and then Nisha will play mid for Team Secret. So there you go. That's a possible rumor out there. Again, no confirmation on that one, but that's
sounds believable.
It does. I agree, actually.
Definitely sounds believable.
I agree.
He says it's crazy. I don't really think it's that crazy, right? I mean, Nisha played mid a lot, and he's obviously an incredibly skilled mechanically player, so he has what it takes to play mid at a competitive level. And Matoma Man, one of the hottest free agents in all of EU. So these things seem crazy when you like, but once they play out, you're kind of like, that makes sense, you know. Usually. CIS region, again, it's whether or not they're going to have 3 or 2 spots. We do know this is probably, I want to say, I was going to say the most unknown but we're just talking about Europe. But CIS with VP now being kind of really a new squad altogether. Resolution, but you got Na'Vi in their new squad. You have Gambit. No longer with F9, but a new player in. So it's several teams here that's certainly to look out for when it comes to what they're going to do. I mean, off the bat, I would go towards Na'Vi having success. In fact, the We Play event that just happened that I actually did some casting for, they did end up winning that event and taking their share of the $50,000 prize pool. So solid squad. If I had to predict a team out of CIS that I was confident in going on in the major, I would predict Na'Vi, but who the hell knows, right? Yep, absolutely. That's another region that I think has gained a lot of power in the last several years. That meaning that the average play of the 3rd, 4th, 5th best teams in that region has gone up drastically. And I always like to see that region for the same reason I like China, where the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th slots have always had high contention. And with China, it's always a little bit different because it's usually the same players. But with CIS, it's kind of these players I've never heard of. And it's kind of interesting to see. There's just a lot of skill, a lot of Dubai in the Russian region. And that's a lot of these teams I've never really heard of. But whenever I see these organizations, kind of tier 2-ish organizations, almost like Vegas Squadron, they always show up with solid rosters. So looking forward to seeing kind of what pans out from this roster shuffle in CIS.
North America, jumping over to NA, and again, especially if there's only 2 squads at that one last spot, you of course have Evil Geniuses, you have the Team Quincy as they're going by, the stack that we've been talking about. Those are safely, at least in my mind, the predicted top 2 major squads. But then you have a team like JStorm. They did just obviously lose Resolution, but picking up a solid player there in Brax to go to offlane and move going back to 1. So what are your, speaking of that, could you see JStorm breaking through, being a top 2, or is it going to be the EG and Team Quincy?
Yeah, on paper, these 2 teams, EG and Team Quincy, are just way better than these other teams. These players also haven't been playing together as a squad of 5 for more than a couple weeks. Even CCnC said that they scrimmed for 3 weeks. So when you haven't been playing together that long, there's a lot of room for, let's say, what's the word for it? The the difference in performance level. Why am I blanking on the word? What like the difference between them playing at their best and worst is going to be high, and that's the thing that is a big deal. Is the consistency is not there. The volatility is there. That's the word I was looking for, and so that allows for these teams with other high skill players like JStorm to potentially upset. So I don't want to rule out that the JStorm or the Fighting Papagas could possibly take that second major spot simply because these two major teams have not really had time to refine their roster as like a unit, which means in Dota, a team game, that's always possible. And I think it's going to become harder and harder as the season goes on to do that. But in the first major, maybe the second major, it's quite possible. Variance, somebody said in chat. That is another word I was looking for.
Variance. There you go. Yeah, I find it hard to believe because even with that logic, it's solid, but you do have teams. All these other teams are also these new rosters that are coming together. So you'd figure the skill certainly of a team like Team Quincy is gonna just out carry enough, and I think the format's friendly enough for that. Like if we had like a best of one group stage matches, and that's not the case. It's a GSL format into a full playoff, so. Because of that leeway there, I think you should expect the EG and Team Quincy squads to be moving through. So, Southeast Asia, the next region, on the list there. Again, I guess it really is a case for all these regions. So previewing is a bit difficult, but really wide open as far as expectation goes. From Southeast Asia. You have teams like Fnatic, but of course their makeup of a couple of new players themselves. Probably would expect them to be on top of the list of what to move forward. But also GeekFam for me has been one that somewhat stood out. Now picking up Raven and Cuckoo, also looking at Ryoya as a position 2, and then you got Zephyr and Dubu making the squad. So this is one of these, they've been an organization in Southeast Asia for at least several years now. Never really have had a very, very strong team. I think this is certainly their strongest, and maybe one to look out for in SEA, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm mainly looking at 23 Savage. I've talked about it. He's just a young guy that I think he's like 15 or 16. Obviously, playing the carry role appeals to me even more so than normal when watching an up-and-coming player. I just always curious to see what kind of transition these types of players make. He's in the same realm as Gunner for me. They were on the same team going in the TI qualifiers. They're just two players that have proven that they can compete with the best. But what's that going to bode for them when they've got the veteran leadership that they've kind of never had going into the next season? And so a team like this is really going to Fnatic is who I'm talking about. Their success is drastically going to be determined by, I believe, his adjustment and growth as a player. Yeah. So these are the type of players I like to look out for because I think we know what to expect from the other 4 players on that roster. Moon at the 2, Ice at the 3, DJ at the 4, and Jabs at the 5. And it's a matter of how well that final piece of the puzzle can bring it all together, kind of like the Sumail of TI5.
Well, then you got South America, of course, to round it up. A squad region that not the highest expectations always, but with the run at TI of Infamous, this certainly is a region that has grown over the years. This whole DPC format has allowed for that. That was the purpose of it in the first place, and I do think we are starting to see more and more of it come to fruition. I still think those growing pains will continue into this season. I don't think we're there just yet as far as all these breakout teams from South America, but are there any squads that have your eye from South America?
I'm under the impression that the Infamous squad will have a new organization, and as of now, they've proven to be the most consistent. That roster has proven to be the most consistent, not only roster but performing team out of South America. And that region is kind of volatile, like North America, where a lot of people swap. Teams don't last very long. Lack of success maybe contributes to that in both regions. And so I'm heavily leaning towards Infamous, or the previous Infamous squad being rather dominant in that region.
And Burgessa.
Yes, and Burgessa. The cat cheeseburgers, yes. I believe is the proper term.
They should, whoever picks them up, they should allow them to keep that logo at least.
Yeah, so for sure.
No, it's certainly the team to beat in South America there, though, coming off of that success, of course. So All right, so those are the 6 regions. Again, as far as the previewing goes, at least a couple of teams went over. Hopefully helpful there as far as information, but there is really an unknown. So no matter how much research you do, going into this first cycle, we're going to definitely start getting more answers and moving forward here. So, but we are running a little bit longer, so I think that means we can be coming to a conclusion here for our second episode of the Wombo Combo. Big shout out to CCnC once again for joining us a little bit later on than planned, and had a little bit of a hashtag production value going on there. But you know what? We got the content, that's what matters. So I'm sure you guys enjoyed that interview, and big shout out again for him for coming on. BSJ, before we officially close, anything else?
I'm just really looking forward to watching the qualifiers this weekend. This will be our first dose of Dota since TI. There's been some small changes, and even though it'll be similar to TI, I always like to see the new meta update from all the best players in the world, and that's what I'm going to be looking for coming on next week.
Yeah, you teased it a little bit. There was that patch that came out earlier today. A couple of minor changes overall, but still it could be interesting to see what comes of it leading in to the qualifiers kicking off on October 5th. That's a Saturday as we're recording this podcast. So shout out to you guys for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Again, hopefully you enjoyed. Feel free to leave feedback. Going to make a Reddit post as always after the fact on the episode. We are on Spotify as well as iTunes, guys. You can check us out. And we are going to be live recording every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. That is at least the plan. Of course, we'll let you know if that at all changes. But every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern, and then after that on Spotify and iTunes. And also the chat interaction. We love having you guys ask questions in chat. Definitely want to do more of that as well in future episodes. But until next time, thank you once again for tuning in. We'll see you. Have a good night.